Oh, I am going to die here. I am surrounded. Well, hello there everybody, and welcome to Enshrouded. My name is Will, this is An Ecologist Plays, the channel where we talk about nature while playing games. And well, if that sounds like something you'd like to see more of, there's a lovely subscribe button right down there. Of course, now that the Wake of the Water update has released, well, we are going to start a new playthrough in Enshrouded. Now, we do have a few objectives for this playthrough that I will discuss as we go along, but the main thing we are going to do is we are going to play in an ecologically friendly manner. So we are going to play in such a way that we have as little impact on the environment as possible. So let's head on through here. We'll just have our torch equipped, and let's just make our way to the first spot where a lot of people will build their first base. Alright, and here we go. This little clearing over here, right next to Long Keep, is a spot where, well, a lot of people will build their first base. But we are not going to build a more permanent base. In fact, the first while we are playing, we are actually going to be a bit more nomadic. Only really building a proper base when we find a good spot to do so. For now, though, we're just going to build a little flame altar, and we're just going to plop it down right over here. Let's just craft that, and just plop it down right over here. Of course, we do need a workbench, at least to just, repair our tools and also to craft the bare minimum of stuff. And then we're just going to hunt some of the wolves in the area here just to make life a little bit less dangerous for us. Of course, well, these wolves will come for us later after being done with these little rabbity thingies. It is the circle in life and all, but I would prefer not being part of that circle of life, at least for now. Now, this starting biome we are in the Springlands, is a typical mixed woodland. It's not really a true forest, it's less than 75% canopy covered by trees, so it's a little bit more open, not quite a savanna either, but it has got a whole bunch of trees here. Oh, we are apparently starting to die. I do have starvation on, so we do need to constantly eat, just to, stay alive, so just have to keep an eye on that. Right, but this is a typical woodland, so we've got our trees here, we've got some grasses, and of course you'll have a whole bunch of animals adapted to this semi-open forest. You also will have a whole bunch of species that can only really survive here. These fungi, for example, the pennybun mushrooms, they're also known as porcini mushrooms, and well, if you have ever had a porcini mushroom, you'll know how lovely these pennybun mushrooms are. Oh, they are absolutely lovely. One of my favorite mushrooms to actually forage. And yeah, I do occasionally forage for mushrooms, but only really the species that I know very, very well. Pennybun mushroom, the porcini mushrooms being one of those. Now, they are mutualistic. They don't just grow on their own. They're a type of mycorrhizal species. In other words, they grow on the roots of these, most likely, in fact, the oak tree over here. So the fungus body grows around the oak tree's roots. And then the fungus will help the oak tree by taking up phosphorus from the soil, by taking up more water from the soil, and they'll pass those nutrients and the water on to the oak tree. The oak tree, on the other hand, will be photosynthesizing and producing sugars in the process, and will then be passing on the sugars to the fungus. And in that way, both parties benefit. And that is absolutely wonderful. Now, we're just going to plop down a little campfire, and but we're going to plop it down right over here, where there isn't any grass that we can accidentally, set on fire. And we're just going to cook our pennybun mushrooms here, and also the meat we obtained from the animals. Now, it's important to cook these porcini mushrooms. You don't want to eat these forage mushrooms raw. They are edible. They're not going to kill you, but they may give you an upset stomach if you eat them without cooking them. So if you eat them raw. So best to, at least cook the mushrooms, and hopefully that will prevent you from having an upset stomach. Now, I'm just going to build a very, very rudimentary shelter over here, which in essence just consists of a simple frame and a roof over my head. And well, there we go. This is sufficient. It's not comfortable, apparently, but I can at least get the rested bonus here by just chilling under this. And I'm going to plop down a bed over here as well, just so I can sleep through the nights. Of course, as mentioned, we are going to be a bit nomadic in this playthrough, at least initially. And when we are done here, I'm just going to break this down and we are going to move on to the next spot. But for now, this is a nice spot to at least get some things done. Now, of course, the first thing we do have to do is actually find the blacksmith. So we are going to go do that in a moment. I'm just going to eat some purple berries here, just, to get my health back. Because, well, I did take a bit of a knock there as we finally reached level 2 as well. Now, this over here is the ruins of Long Keep, which is a little town that we had here. Well, there's not much that is left in this town. There are quite a few crates you can smash. There is a well over here as well, which is, well, very nice to get a drink from. But we are just going to follow this little road over here to get to the other side of the shroud, because I do believe the blacksmith that we are looking for is right on the other side over there. Now before we go through the shroud, I'm just going to quickly craft a pickaxe here. And we're also just going to, you know, take on this wolfie over here. Ah, yes, perfect block. I love it when the perfect block comes together. And of course, we got some meat out of that deal as well. But here we go, the shroud that has taken over the world of Embervale. Which is, yeah, this is a catastrophe actually. It has closed a whole bunch of areas, prevented people from actually moving from one area to another. It interrupted trade, and of course a lot of people died in the process as well. Now we don't want to die due to the shroud or the shroud people here. So hopefully we stay alive. I do want to quickly have a look though. There's always been a nice thing to loot somewhere around here. One of these pillars. I do believe it was right over here. Let's have a look though. It may still be here. I see a golden glow. And there we go. We've got a nice greatsword and we have a nice wand as well. Well now, not a bad start. Now the greatsword is one of the new weapons. It has come out with the Wake of the Water update, but it had been requested by the community for a very, very long time. Especially some individuals have been very vocal about wanting the greatsword. Now, I will most likely not be using the greatsword. In fact, I will most likely be using magic in my playthrough. I do love the mage, and I know it is not the easiest, especially not at the start, but later on it can be extremely powerful, and it is a lot of fun. Aha, there are some scavengers. Now, the scavengers, they're just typical bandits that we are going to encounter. And we're just going to, you know, be nimble about it. We are a ranged individual, after all. But that does give us metal scraps, and oh my word, there we go, fireflies. Oh man, I absolutely love fireflies. They're such cool beetles. Now, despite being called fireflies, they're not actually flies, they are beetles. And these are all male, well, most likely male. There are some species in which the females will also fly, but in most species, the females are actually, well, we say larvae form. They basically resemble larvae. They don't have wings, they don't fly, they crawl around on the ground, resembling their larvae, the so-called glowworms. But the males, on the other hand, well, they will fly, and they flash their little bombs there to signal to females that they are in the area, and if the females are not interested, they will flash back, and the males will then go to them, and well, they will reproduce. But of course, the way they produce the light, that is absolutely amazing, and we will talk about luciferase and luciferin later on, but for now, we're just going to avoid this dark area. And it is raining as well. You know what? Stuff it, we are going home. It is raining, we are just going to chill under our roof here, and this is why we have this little shelter over here. It keeps us dry, so we've got a nice little torch burning, that dries us off a little bit quicker, and there we go, we are finally dry again. You know what, I'm going to also just move this workbench under the roof, so we can do some crafting even when it rains. Now, with it being nighttime, the shroud people should be out a bit more, so let's just have a look for them around in this area. Because, oh, there we go. Oh, interesting. Our torch has gone out. Haha. Alright, so that happens now with the rain. Torches are snuffed. Well, that, you know, does make sense. Our stamina is also very, very low. That's not very nice, though. Not very pleasant for us, at least. There we go. There is a shroud person. Miss. I do need torn cloth, and there we go. Have got some torn cloth there. Aha, we got a nice bow from that chest. Well, that is absolutely marvelous. But what we have here is a whole smorgasbord of mushrooms, or fungi at least, and a whole bunch of different types of fungi seemingly living together in the mycelial network here. So we've got some bracket fungi over there, and we've got some more typical basidiomycetes over here, these typical mushrooms. But these are just the fruiting bodies of the fungi. The majority of the fungus is actually in this mycelial network, which we can't really see here at the moment, but it is a whole bunch of little thin threads that are mushed together to form the body of the fungi. Alright, we can pick up some tar there as our fire has burnt out. And there we go. What I really wanted was just a nice little bed. Now, apparently there isn't enough space under our little shelter for us to actually have the bed here, so we just have to extend the roof a bit. So let's just quickly do that, shall we? And there we go, our little roof. Let's just sleep through the night now, shall we? And then we'll just head on over to this area over here, where I do believe there are a few more enemies. There are also some bees here that are obviously protecting their nest here. Now, I think there actually are more wasps than there are bees, considering that these nests here do appear to be the nests or the hives of paper wasps. Now, what we are going to do is we're just going to raid them, though, for the wax and their honey. And we'll talk about that in an upcoming episode as well, the wax and honey and how they produce all those lovely things. I do see a red barrel right over there, so we may as well make that go boom. We've almost been taken out by that scavenger over there. So let's just, play it more cautiously. And let's just also bandage up our wounds here. Now there should be one last hurdle before we unlock the blacksmith in here. And there we go. That is one last little scavenger in front there. And then we'll just grab Oswald Anders, our blacksmith now. Now the thing is that with our more nomadic lifestyle that we will be following, that is going to be perhaps a little bit more challenging because we won't be able to make some of the more amazing stuff that we would like to make, the better armor and weapons and stuff that we want to make, because you do need the blacksmith, for example, sheltered in order to do that. And we won't be able to shelter him, at least not until we build a more permanent base. And that is where our first base will come into play. We are going to build somewhere into the mountainside. I'm not sure whether it's going to be here. I still have to decide where that has to be. But we are going to build into the mountainside a kind of cave network. Think Moria, but probably less grandiose. But the main base we are going to be building will be a botanical gardens. That is going to be the big project of this playthrough. We are going to create a botanical gardens that's not just a botanical garden, so we're also going to feature the animals that are present within each of the major biomes of this game. So we're going to have the different animals, we're going to have the different plants, the different landscapes simulated in our botanical gardens that we will be making. So if that's something you want to see the progress of, do hit that subscribe button and follow along for the journey. For now though, we're just traveling back to the other side of the bridge here. I don't want to run around through the shroud there. Much easier to just plop down over here to teleport back to our flame. Now we've made the summoning staff here, and we're just going to get old Oswald Anders over here. Oh, you know what? This guy, he loves screaming at us. So let's get him a little bit further away. Let's put him over here. There we go. Immediately start screaming at us like oi. Now here at Oswald, we are just going to make some lockpicks because it's 1 metal scrap per lockpick if we craft it via him, but it's 2 metal scraps per lockpick if we craft it ourselves. And then just looking at the armor we can craft here, our first armor set, we need torn cloth, animal fur and string along with metal scraps. So let's see what we can do about that. But before we do that, I'm just going to assign this bed to Oswald, even though I'm going to be sleeping in it. Sorry, Oswald, you are going to stand right over there, twirling around. No. You are not going to be walking around. We're going to plop you down right over here. You're not walking around. I want to know exactly where you are at all times. And there we go. I was just about to say we are probably being hunted by the wolves. And of course, there were 2 of them because, well, wolves usually hunt in packs. And there are most likely a few more to this area, so let's just quickly have a look for them. Later on, we are going to get the Beastmaster skill, which will then prevent them from actually attacking us, which means we'll live in a little bit more harmony with nature. But for now, yeah, unfortunately, we are being attacked by them and attacking them in return. Alright, so let's craft our first armor set. And there we go, we have it officially equipped. Though it doesn't look like it because, well, I've got my cosmetic armor set that I'm wearing here. But we've got these armor pieces actually equipped. Now there is one more thing we need to craft, and that is the glider. So to do that, we need to go into the shroud and harvest some shroud wood. So let's quickly go do that as the rain sets in again. So now we are wet again, which means that our stamina is lower, our stamina takes longer to regenerate. Yeah, all around not a very pleasant experience. But here we go, here are the shroud trees. And I just realized I don't have an axe. So let's quickly craft that. But here we go, the shroud trees over here. So these were normal conifer trees, normal pine trees that have been, well, something happened to them, let's put it that way. And looking at it here, it's the wood of shroud-infested trees with its structure and properties changed forever. Now what that tells me is that these trees most likely died when the shroud took over this area, and what then happened is that the mycelium, the fungal mycelium, grew into the wood of the dead trees here, and it changed the properties. It infused it with fungus. Now whether that means that the wood here is lighter or just weirder or stronger or magical, I don't know. I would hazard a guess and say, well, it most likely makes it lighter, because a lot of the heavy, hard wood would be replaced with lighter mycelium. So lighter fungal threads. Alright, one more tree, then we're heading home. Alright, that should be enough. Now, usually you don't want to use wood that has been infused with fungus, okay, that has been taken over by fungus, because that fungus has most likely been decomposing the timber, making it weaker. You don't want to use that weakened timber in your woodwork projects. However, it can be quite a beautiful wood. Depending on the fungus that attacks the wood, and depending on the type of wood, it can actually be beautiful timber, the fungus-infused timber. But in the case here of Enshrouded, I think it is a magical fungus, meaning that it most likely gives it some kind of magical properties. I was just checking here, we just need a shroud spore as well, which I do believe, yeah, there we go, indeed, in the chest there. And we can just craft the glider for ourselves here. Now, I'm sure in the background you guys can hear some weird high-pitched chirping sounds. Well, those would be the Hyperoleus marmoratus froggies. They are the painted reed frogs that are calling outside my window. So, sounds of nature playing in the background there. Alright, now, let's equip that glider. And then we are going to head on over to the elixir well. And let's quickly go clear that. Now, I've got no idea how this is going to go. I don't foresee it going well. Pardon the pun. But there is the elixir well. Now, the first time I tried this, my wife and I, we just started playing Enshrouded, and we headed down here, didn't even know that we could craft armor, and we just went in butt naked with only the pants around our waists and the basic swords and stuff, basic weapons we could get. So, not really a great idea to do that. So now, hopefully, we will be a little bit more prepared than we were that time. Still probably going to die, or possibly, oh, there we go, it's an attack or immediately. And of course, everybody's attacking us, but we're just going to hopefully get rid of some of these guys. Now, there was an archer, I think it's that archer at the back there. I'm hearing another one. Oh, there are critters here as well, hello there. There's an archer as well, of course there is. Oh, I am going to die here. I am surrounded. We're just going to clear this, shall we? Okay, finally. No little critters. No, no, no. Oh, hello there. No, 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 come back here. You know what, we have got the range, we may as well use it to our advantage. And we also have got a shroud survival flask that we can use before going into the shroud in the elixir well. So let's do that now, shall we? There we go. Instead of 5 minutes, we can now stay in the shroud for a wonderful 7 minutes. Okay, that's something. That is something at least. Oh, and a chest. I do love this metal star mace. So we're going to replace our short sword with the mace. That is my weapon of choice, as we just descend into the elixir well. And that is what we need to destroy. That shroud root over there. But there's also, right over there, there is the big bad. Ho ho. Alright, shall we go there now? I don't think it's a great idea, but you know what? Let's do that, shall we? There should be a Thunderbrute coming our way. Yeah, there we go, indeed. Okay, let's just avoid that hit there. And let's just, you know, not be attacked by him. Yes, it's just slow and steady. That's the trick here, I guess. Don't get cocky, Will. Okay, right on cue. I got cocky. We're just trying to get our stamina back here as well. Unfortunately, that is a little bit slow to recover. We're just going to drink a potion there. Oh, and he's dead. Wonderful. Okay. And then we can just clear this shroud root. Now, we do have a little bit of time to actually chat about this. So, when you've got the shroud, it seems to be this almost eusocial-like creature. Now, eusocial, meaning that there's like a queen, a reproductive individual, and a colony with workers and soldiers and stuff, and the likes. And it almost feels to me as though the shroud fungus acts like that, with the shroud root here being the queen, the reproductive individual. It's the only one that actually reproduces. And the rest of the fungal mycelium acting like workers, colonizing new areas, bringing resources back to the shroud root. And there are a few of these shroud roots all over the landscape. And of course we get stronger by getting rid of them. And we'll do that as we carry on. And we'll chat about that as we do so. But this individual here, you can kind of see it's a big cap. And that is spreading a whole bunch of spores. And those spores, where they land, they can then form new shroud, in essence, shroud fungus, which may then develop into a proper new shroud root as well. Now that's one way to look at it, or this could just be the fruiting body of the normal shroud fungus. And it's just like a normal fungus growing underground, taking over the area, decomposing, in this case also parasitizing humanoids. But then when the time is right, they can produce these big mushrooms, in essence, these big fruiting bodies. And when you eat a mushroom, you're just eating the fruiting body of a fungus. Okay, so it's like eating the apple of a tree. All right, so let us clear that. And now we also got some skill points there. And yeah, we also have leveled up, I do believe. I am probably going to go for double jump first. That is normally the way I work. And then from there, I'll have to decide what I want to go for. So let's go for increased endurance, have runner, and then I need 2 more skill points in order to get double jump. And now we also have gotten mycelium, which is wonderful. We can also just mine the normal mycelium, I do believe over here. Yeah, there we go, that's just normal mycelium. That's just the body of the fungus, of the shroud fungus. And then this, I think, is active mycelium. There we go, active mycelium. It's bioluminescent, which is very interesting. There are some bioluminescent fungi on Earth as well. Fungi that, during their normal processes, they have this excess energy that they produce, and that energy is then dissipated in the form of light. So very often there are chemical reactions that result in bioluminescence. Bio referring to life, luminescence, the production of light. So it's the light production in a living organism. Think fireflies, for example. That is also bioluminescence. In this case, it's the fungus that somehow is making this bioluminescence. It's really pretty, I must say. Really, really pretty. And in the dark here, you can kind of see these little glowy bits all over the show here. This is most likely to attract things like moths to them, because the moths will then bump up against that. And even though the shroud root is the main reproductive individual, maybe these fungi are also kind of able to produce their own spores and also colonize new areas even without the shroud root. And it's possibly more plausible if it's not a eusocial organism, with the shroud root being the queen and the fungus here just being the workers. If it's actually just a whole bunch of fungi working together or living together, not in a eusocial structure, then it would make sense that these fungi here need to also reproduce. The way they would do that then is by creating little lights at the tips of their little branches here, the way spores would be produced. And when moths then bump up against the tips of the fungal threads here, they get the spores stuck on their body, and then as they fly around, those spores would fall off and would be able to form new fungi. That kind of makes sense to me. So I don't know which one of the two theories, is correct. Either one of them kind of, at least to me, sound plausible. But alright, we are just going to teleport back to our base. And you know what, I think this is a good spot for us to end today's episode. So thank you very much everyone for joining me on a little adventure here. Hope you had fun. I had a lot of fun being back in Enshrouded. I'll be back next Friday with another episode where again we'll be delving into some of the ecology of the creatures and the biomes that we find in Ember Vale. Of course, if you've got any comments or questions, please pop them down in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer as best I can. And if you've got any suggestions of what you'd like to see me do, please also pop that down in the comments below. And until next time, everybody, stay safe. I'll see you all soon. Cheers!